In Greek mythology, Medusa is the youngest sister of two deathless gorgons, Steno and Euryale, characterized by her mortal nature and paralyzing gaze of eyes. She was beheaded by Perseus with the help of Athena, Greek goddess of wisdom, handicraft, and warfare, and Hermes, god of commerce and trade. Having been born as a prince, Perseus is condemned to live as a poor and unfortunate, pursued by the political power of his own grandfather in the first place and governmental mandate of Polydectes, who wants him to be killed by Medusa. Certainly as a reference to the administrative structure of tyranny, isolating and green with people that dare to defend justice. Therefore, it is a solid part of what Medusa had symbolized and embodied in Greek mythology, the lies and acts of tyranny. The false banquet and the collection of gifts for the hand of Hippodamia in the story of Medusa makes a reference to an inconvenient, fraudulent regulation, costume of a whole false religion, invented with a special purpose to ruin and weaken the force of some talented young adversaries, that can suppose a big problem for the might of a king, that can be one of the most important allusions to the meaning of Medusa in Greek mythology. The only destroyable bastion of a wicked king are the lies and falsehoods of his regime, the acts of tyranny supposed to guarantee his baleful political power. Disinformation, fraudulent laws, political persecution, retrograde beliefs, corruption and falsities are the mortal source of power for a wicked ruler. These lies and acts of despotism must be eradicated to free humankind, in the same way as Perseus must slay Medusa. But two of her sisters are immortal, two mainstays of an ignoble autocrat, which can be used to end with his despotic power of tyranny, and should not be eradicated. They are violence and self-profit. For that reason, according to the story of Medusa, Steno and Euryale are everlasting. Being the leading features of a mankind from the times of an archaic sea, they had granted its major wrongdoings and its greatest achievements at the same time. Them both undying and eternal, violence and self-profit, are not entirely bad. They can be used as the main weapons to eradicate and demolish the might of tyranny and injustice. An ideology or religion that pursues the expression of strength, Steno, searches the annihilation of physical and intellectual might, which can be used by the rebels against the power of an emperor. The early Christians followed Christianity in such a fanatic way because they never had been strong and lacked the idea of a collective, usurping and destroying the pillars of heroic individualism and force. They frantic envy and wish to demonstrate that an individual is nothing against the values of mass. Move them forward. Roman Empire had changed its gods full of individual exceptionalism for Christianity. As a consequence, the way of a warrior that was such a fundamental base for the empire had been ransacked in its spirit and traditions. The plebeians had been more plebeians of what they used to be, and the Roman legionaries detested them even stronger. To divide your enemy so you can reign had worked the most effective way, but the Roman Empire died and the progress of humanity had been stopped for a long 1,000 years because of people that wanted and pretended to eradicate the strength. The eradication of self-profit and property, usually, would also suppose a complete disaster for the prosperity of the ideal state. Absence of private initiative and entrepreneurship would lead such a society towards the greatest loss of utility and technological progress, poverty, degradation, and economic collapse, as it happened in Soviet Union. The early Bolshevism had been an excellent expression of left fascism. The idea of a collective destroying the life of a better neighbor because of a personal envy dominated the spirit of Bolshevik revolt. Narrow-minded hate to perfection and intelligence had been essential for the establishment of communism. No rich, no poor, the proletarians followed the principle of Marxism in every way, smashing the values of the left utopian revolution and fighting against the true revolutionaries. SR, social revolutionaries, cadets, Constitutional Democratic Party, and White Army of Russia as Republican and Democratic forces. Lenin and his ideology looked ugly enough as to symbolize the expression of proletarian envious nature. The ultimate purpose always had been the power of flock, political mandate of resentful equality. They never stopped. They never listened to other revolutionaries because they wanted to legalize the power of losers and low mediocrities, the power to mandate above all other people in the world, and consequently to forbid all other ideas, to force all people to be equal, to forbid the notion of success and free thinking in such a way as Zeus was used to spoil the birth of heroes because of a hateful thirst for revenge against natural hierarchy and the totalitarian dream of resentful weakness. The way the weak constrain the strong. This is another reason for the immortality of the both eldest Gorgons. Violence and self-profit are essential for the existence of mankind and cannot be killed because the ideas of people who pretend to eradicate the both Gorgons are much more radical, destructive, and prejudicial. Unjust laws, corruption, wicked morality, and governmental falsehoods had helped the rich to maintain their political power. To be said, the lies and acts of an evil government had obstructed the progress of humankind and appeared after the self-profit, in the same way as Medusa, who was the last child after Steno and Euryale. Nonetheless, the story of Medusa and Perseus has another universal message. The poor man is so bad as the wealthy. His delusions of hate towards intelligence, strength, and free thinking of a free man are so colossal, and his reasoning is so pathetic that he would prefer to build an entire despotic regime of tyranny in order to forbid and ruin the success of self-made winners. As a matter of fact, he already had chosen this path: communism, fascism, and Christianity. The slaves from the cave never would allow the free man to help them. Allegory of the Cave by Plato. They wish him to die and suffer. The main patrons of Perseus are Athena and Hermes. Athena is the goddess of wisdom, handicraft, and strategic warfare. Ancient Greek handicraft is nothing but the bodacious expression of early art. In regard to warfare, science and technology are very effective to defeat troops of enemies on a battlefield. Art is the ultimate force able to shatter the limits of human imagination, talent, and creativity. Art brings perfection and spiritual freedom, the wisdom to create and conceive a better idea, plan, strategy, or product. Insomuch as wisdom is the quality of having a lot of knowledge and the right judgment regarding all kinds of decisions, the main source of wisdom must be science, philosophy, and art. Therefore, Athena is the way of truth, freedom, and justice, in contradiction with Medusa, the way of falsities and lies, which existence is usually originated by avarice, hate, and vanity of certain group of people, not by a correct calculation, perfect philosophical reflection, or a fabulous labor of creativity. Each sinful king is prone to fear and forbid the power of science because of its harvest of social advantages for the citizens and frauds in form of larger amount of better food, clothes, and sane conditions, which would permit them to be stronger and have a greater self-determination to mutiny against their king. A wicked ruler abhors philosophy because of its free ideals and teachings about the ideal state. It's dangerous to allow such kind of mastery to be owned by populace. They could revolt effectively. In the third place, a tyrant despises the art but never pays so much of attention due to its perfect enjoyable shape, which is nothing else but a great adornment for his palace, except in the works of literature and poetry, which always had been a flashing flame for rebellion. However, such a kind of medieval description sounds too savage for Zeus, Polydectes, and sunny ancient Greece. Zeus is of a great social injury, accepted and tolerated by the ancient and modern civil society. He is so grueling and exhausting as the Sisyphean task, and finally so devastating as the flood of Deucalion, which had exterminated the men of the Bronze Age. For that reason, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, had been burned when the excruciating headache of Zeus, as a metaphor and allusion to disciplines that always had been unpleasant and destructive for the power of a wicked king, science, art, and philosophy. As the story of Medusa goes, Hermes is so much unwelcomed as Athena. According to the Greek mythology, he is depicted as a servant, a messenger of Zeus, obliged to deliver the letters and post of Olympus, rushing through the sky as an errand boy. Every simple man unwelcomes Hermes in such a way as Zeus, dreaming about his personal cluster of lies and absolute power, which could be destroyed by the richness and marvelous enterprise of another man who could employ his money to extinguish the might of his adversary, or even worse, to annihilate the ultimate idea and structure of injustice and favoritism, establishing a democratic political order. As a matter of fact, great volume of commerce and trade would contribute excessively to the prosperity and wellness of people. Their perspective of life would be changed for very liberal and independent. No one would respect the king and his absolutism. For that reason, Hermes always had been seen and treated as an errand boy by Olympus. For that reason, Hermes, as well as Athena, is another patron for Perseus in his way to liberate the world from its ominous structure of deceits, named Gorgon Medusa, the breakable tower of power for Zeus, who is nothing but the evil quintessence of a simple man. According to the original story of Medusa, Athena helps Perseus, having given him a polished bronze shield, which he uses to look at the reflections behind his back, avoiding to be petrified by Medusa's gaze of eyes, probably as a symbol of wisdom's superiority, wholeheartedness, and commitment to the ideals of wisdom, justice, freedom, and utopia. Perseus is an anarchist, a true revolutionary, a true anarchist. He will never be tempted or scared by the power of tyranny, hates helmet of invisibility and Athena's shield work together. Having lived the way of perfection in his own heart, Perseus is a warrior of death and justice beyond compare. The ugly, trivial world of humans is not able to lure him anymore. There is no cause to live, but a fight against Medusa in name of Athena. It feels like a wonderful melody about the loss of an eternal second of youth in an innocent grove full of streams, which never will be reached by the wind of the hero. His romanticism and crimson chime of the sword don't believe in people anymore, and the enticing music of death had begun. Perseus is transparent, pure and invisible, looking backwards. There never will be a reflection of an arrogant, overbearing ruler, greedy for money and fame. It is only about Medusa and the perfect strike of Hermes' exquisite harp sword, whose adamantine blade of trade and money will be used in only one fair direction: justice, prosperity, and progress of the ideal state. There is no wish for the self-profit or sadistic pleasure of violence against humanity, just a life of dedication for the sake of political masterpiece and Athena's axiomatic system of chess. In similar fashion as the story of Medusa, the allegory of Atlas is multifaceted. The giant is the idea of the whole humankind being limited by its physical and political conditions of life, such as the mortality, aging, unjust economic system, and the science forbidden by Zeus, the mankind never got an opportunity to bring into use. Hence, the man is mortal and aging. He is able to work hard and propitiously on his own, but the fruits of his work are not so numerous because of the limits imposed on science, and these fruits, they belong to an abusive monopoly of Zeus. The mankind is oppressed by its arduous, useless task as a holder of humans, obliged to suffer appalling conditions of life, squandering the joyful time of a stunning, blooming garden and the benefits of a golden apple tree. As a matter of fact, the tree with golden apples bears resemblance to the idea of ramification of a prodigious scientific invention, which main trunk would grow new branches of impressive inventions and innovations, whose technological base would originate another golden branches of exceptional discoveries and immense opportunities, having entailed worldwide prosperity, exhilaration, and harmony. Perhaps as an example of modern age, Free Energy by Nikola Tesla and non-chargeable ecological engines for automobiles, which would have extinguished the problem of pollution and heavenly burdensome costs of life. Therefore, Perseus is not killing the working class that stood for the idea of its own liberation, or the working man that once was poor but had become affluent and never would share his money with anyone. Quite the contrary, the head of Medusa is used to turn into stone the condition of an oppressed and agonizing humanity. By the means of free science, art and philosophy, wiping out its last bondages and misadventures, including all those who set to fight for its rights and freedoms, but betrayed the essential meaning of left revolution, I mean communists. By virtue of Perseus and the head of Medusa, humankind will be immortal and eternally young. The condition of tiring, outrageous mandate of Zeus will come to an end. No diseases, pollution or poverty will be permitted in the world of Athena. Astonishing mighty mechanism will be sustaining the arc of heavens. Amazing flowering gardens and streams will extol her republic of truth. The story of Medusa is not just an old legend or the master key to the gates of Greek mythology. The youngest Gorgon is universal, long-lasting and admonishing. She is the evil monster which always had stopped the progress of humanity, turning into stones the potential, talents and opportunities of many nations and peoples all around the world. That being said, Christianity, fascism and communism have been a very vigorous kind of Medusa. People's life and thinking have been controlled and abruptly petrified by malefic eyes of totalitarianism. Persons had no opportunity to develop their own opinions and intelligence. They had to believe in the lies of the state. Nowadays, Medusa is worldwide present. The use of oil and polluting energy, deliberately organized absence of electric self-chargeable automobiles, planned obsolescence of household appliances, electronics and other types of technology, deliberate absence of wastewater treatment plants and industrial air filters. This part of Medusa makes fade away people's health and money, destroys the ecology of the planet Earth and human habitat. On the flip side, another portion of Medusa are aggressive capitalist policies, which ruin the free market economy, people's productivity and wellness, leading to devastating social frustration and economic crisis. As an example, extremely high house prices and abusive mortgages. In effect, people have less money, their life and opportunities are falling apart. The advance of the whole society is being paralyzed and stopped by Medusa. Also, the unfair legislation and retrograde useless laws, which avoid people from reaching their best. The snakes of Medusa always had been so much curly and heinous as the full bottom wig. Then again, all kind of falsities and dimes in educational system. Useless methods and disinformation As a consequence, many students who finish the high school and the universities are poorly prepared for life. The ability to succeed and understand stay very much below of the real potential. And finally, the television programs and newest bad movies is nothing but an arrogant, insane glimpse of Medusa. The fourth power had usually praised the animal behavior, the rule of wise and flock morality, making people live and adore the way of decay, vain foolishness and madness. As Perseus would have said, Medusa never had been a republic, and I never had been a duke. The head of Medusa embodied the lies and acts of tyranny, which the great hero had managed to eradicate with the purpose to free humanity in name of Athena and annihilate his own enemies. Somehow, the myth of Perseus is the story of all the great professionals and genius persons who never had been allowed to do their job. The success of the most honorable and talented individuals is being constrained by the envious and insidious people from the first moment, in the same way as their father rode to glory. Only the weak, the wild, and the incompetent have the right to win. They behave like a political flock of scoundrels, and the talented individuals are their sworn enemy. The glorious, heroic, and fair persons need to die, so the weak form a mass of persons eager to get the absolute power of mediocrity and trying to push their pathetic anti-values into the newest principles of the world. It happens naturally, without any kind of conspiracy and cunning ploy. So the wicked, reprobate king just needs to appear between the crowd and take his political power upon the people, giving them an enemy, a sort of national vanity and legal restrictive regulation. On the other side, Perseus would never be able to do such a thing because he is the opposite of the mass and its sworn enemy, full of perfection. But year after year, the citizens begin to be abused by the evil rulers. Thus, they invent and tell stories about popular heroes such as Perseus, who would be fighting for their rights and freedoms against the lawful injustice. However, the slayer of Medusa is not welcome neither by the kings nor by their subjects. Thus he is destined to stay alone for a long time and has to reflect about the life and philosophy. He perceives the existence of Medusa and its widely spread deceits for the first time. The deep understanding of philosophical thoughts and hidden secrets of art make Perseus to be much stronger, wiser, and much more skillful of what he could ever have been. The hero makes his adventure and slays Medusa, that embodies the acts and lies of tyranny, which had been used to enslave people and pervert their justice. Flying away from the island of the Gorgons, he leaves behind her immortal sisters, two deathless Gorgons that might serve of a great help for his cause of freedom. Self-profit and the philosophy of violence are necessary to raise capital and destroy the nasty villains. Furthermore, the simple men of antiquity, Christianity and communism tried to destroy them, willing to suffocate the spirit of strength, free thinking and justice because of envy, anxious power of flock, and baleful, resentment of idiots. Eager to kill the origins of independence and heroic individualism, the simple man had invented another mortal lies and acts of tyranny, forbidding the self-profit and the radical philosophical realism, the so-called violence. As the wise sages of antiquity would tell, employ the immortal Gorgons to smash the tyranny. And Perseus did. He was a strong hero, a rich merchant, a great philosopher, and great artist, a true anarchist. He built the great social utopia, named the ideal state of Athena, and killed his grandfather Acrisius, who embodied the spirit of aristocratic fear, decay, favoritism, and monarchy.